All right. Good morning, everybody. Nikki Burnett here, Taste Life Nutrition Radio and podcast streaming live on KUHSdenver.com, where we just have the best time. And sometimes things get a little bit wonky and rocky in the beginning, but that's the way that it goes. So today we have Michal LeBaron on, who is a specialist in nervous system regulation. The cool thing is she's also a functional nutritionist. So we went to school together, we've got a lot in common, but due to life, right, and practice and all the things that are thrown at us as we sort of grow and develop, she now specializes in nervous system regulation. So, Michal, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so excited. I've been looking forward to this. You know, the cool thing, or what's fascinating is, to me, when we were in school, it was, you know, what are the basics? You know, what are the basic supplements? What are the basic symptoms? What is it that we can do to deal with these? And now it really is, you know, I go to conferences, I talk to you, I talk to other practitioners, and it's, the basics are now beyond what we learned are the basics, right? The basics, the foundation of health, you know, and in my world, you know, like the foundation of health is our mitochondria. You know, if we have mitochondrial dysfunction, but there's a reason why. So we have to figure out why. So one of the biggest things that often is so overlooked is the nervous system. And so this is going to be such a good show and so fascinating because we're going to get some great tips, but an understanding of what the nervous system is, how and why it can be dysfunctional, and what that means when it comes to our health and to our healing and to longevity and to living well and living life and, you know, and just doing what we're put here to do, all of these things that are so important. So I'm going to stop there, or I'm just going to jump in. We always start the show with gratitude because gratitude can change the world. Gratitude can regulate the nervous system. So let's think about that. Yes, it can. So what are you grateful for?
I'm so grateful for the journey, including the ups and downs, because I see the value in the downs and the struggles as such a time of growth, expansion, increased self-awareness, increased resilience and strength, and just getting to know that we really are bigger than I think we are sometimes.
Yes.
Through the challenges, we actually see how big we are.
Well, it's true. We see how big we are, and we grow more.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's the key to. Is it good? Is that I mean, that's the key. I mean, that's what life is. You know. Unfortunately, it's not all, you know, roses and puppy dogs, which I wish it was, but especially the puppy dogs. But you know, it is the hard stuff. You know, I was actually talking with a client yesterday, and she was kind of sort of the similar stuff, but she's in the, you know, in the meat of it right now, and she's just, or like right in the middle of the river and just trying to, you know, struggle and just, you know, trying to get across, and she's working so hard. And I was like, you know, I've been there. So many of us have been there. You know, so many of us as practitioners have been there, which is how we get to where we are today. And when you grow, when you go back, when you think back, you're like, okay, I hated it. It sucked, but I do what I do now. I am who I am now because of that. And she's like, yep, I get it, and I agree with you. I just want to be out of it. I know, I get it. So let's start with what I'm grateful for. I'm gonna be a little superficial right now because this is something that I've waited about 52 years for. We bought a new couch in May.
Love it.
And we get it tomorrow.
Oh, yay!
I know. So literally I've been waiting for this couch it's big and it's cozy and it's leather and it's dog friendly and it's you know, my husband and I like to lay on the couch together, and the couch we have now is not a laid together kind of couch. It's just small and uncomfortable, and so I'm just so excited. Like, I have a lot of work to do this weekend, but really what I want to do is cuddle up on the couch with the dogs and my husband.
I love it. You gotta do it.
So anyway, I'm so excited for it. We've been waiting for this for a really long time. So really, really fun. Anyway, so let's do this. I really want to, you have such an interesting story, and a really tough story. And I think you have probably a lot more story. You probably could fill up the hour with some of your stories. But I want you just to give, however much you want to give about who you are, where you came from, why you do, what motivates you, what excites you. I mean, you can already see in your face, like as soon as we get started, we can see in your face how excited you are. So, yeah, let's start there.
Yep, would love to.
Yep.
So, just what you were saying, you know, it's through our own journeys that I feel like most of us end up doing what we do to help others through similar things. And in my own journey through what was a mystery for a long time, I wasn't well, was going to the regular doctors, was going to alternative, holistic specialists, and was just not getting any answers. And so the regular doctors would test whatever they tested and said, oh, you look normal. And it's just like, it got so bad I was actually bedridden for years. I certainly was not normal. It was very scary, confusing, traumatizing, and, you know, I remember at one point just thinking, gosh, could you just tell me I have leukemia or something? Like, could you just, it doesn't matter how bad it is. I feel like knowing would be better than not knowing.
So I want to interrupt just real quick, and I'm sorry, because I think it's important that your story, your labs look normal story is prevalent.
Oh, yes.
It's so sad. I hear it all the time. I know you hear it all the time. So I just wanted to jump in there because it's not like, unfortunately, this is a unique story. It's all the time.
All the time. I hear it all the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, come to find out, my journey through functional medicine was like, oh, let's actually learn how to read the labs to see if they're, just because you're not diseased doesn't mean you're not normal, meaning optimal and healthy. And there could be clues of things that aren't diseased yet, but that are causing my symptoms that just don't fit inside a neat little box. And it was interesting to look at the labs and get copies of all my records. And there was actually a genetic disorder that has shown up in my labs ever since I was a baby. And I still wasn't even told it, even though I could have been diagnosed as a baby, because in the US there's no medications for it. So even if I fit that neat little diagnosis box, but I still wasn't even talked to about this because they didn't have any treatment in the US. There's tons of studies in other countries, however, and the holistic community knows very well how to support individuals with this. And so it was just eye-opening to see, well, when they say you're normal, they're running like a handful of tests. They're not running a very comprehensive deep dive panel. And second of all, the stuff that is abnormal, they're not even talking to you about if it doesn't fit what they normally treat. So there's so many reasons why we're told we're normal when we're not. I'm grateful to know that now.
Would it be, and so what I'm not trying to do is dig into your life, your private life. Would it be beneficial for you to say what you struggle with? Would it help people, or is that too private?
No, I think that's fine. I usually kind of generalize it a little bit because I feel like it hits most people, but you know, through functional medicine, I found out I did have an autoimmune disorder, which made so much sense of everything because I was the mystery, and stuff that should have made me feel better made me feel worse, and no one knew why. And it made a lot of sense once we knew my immune system was attacking my blood vessels, why my symptoms were all over the place, you know. But usually these cases that don't, you know, doctors don't know how to help them, there usually is an autoimmune component. And so I had an autoimmune disease, I had a genetic disorder, and I had like food allergies that were pretty severe. Some caused anaphylactic reactions, and then I did have environmental illness, so I couldn't detox very well due to the genetic things. So I was chock full of heavy metals, and I reacted to environmental, you know, chemicals and scents and car exhaust and perfume and laundry soap, and you know, I reacted to all that stuff for so long, I basically had to live in a bubble to not be sick.
Yeah, so today we would call it multiple chemical sensitivity, right? I mean, you know, I don't know, everything has to have some kind of name, but the problem is that we're seeing this all the time.
Oh, yes.
Right? And it's, I say this a lot, but it's this downward spiral that just keeps going and going and going, that, you know, the body just, you know, it's that, as you know, I think a lot of us in the functional world say a lot of times, you know, you've got your bucket that only can handle so much, and once it starts to overflow, then everything starts going wonky and haywire. Mm-hmm.
Yep, and that was me too.
Mm-hmm.
I reached that tipping point. My
Yep.
bucket was overflowing, and
Mm-hmm.
everything started going haywire, and no one knew why. And I
Yep.
loved having answers. Like the holistic community gave me answers. Oh, food allergies. Oh, blood sugar issues. Oh, you know, your liver's stressed out. Oh, this is, you're not digesting your proteins very well. And so I started addressing all of these things. But that was overwhelming in and of itself. So I spent like a decade and a half managing all these symptoms, and then I was kind of at another breaking point of, I don't like that my entire life is micromanaged just to be well and to manage symptoms, and then I'm still flaring up and I'm still scared about it, and I still think something else is wrong, and I don't know how long the flare-up's gonna last. And that's what really led me to say, okay, I know I've got the basics covered, but we got to go deeper. Clearly I am not fully healthy, and I want to know, first of all, if that's even possible, or if this is just it and I need to accept my lot in life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if it is possible, how do I do it? You know, it's like food allergies isn't a root cause, it's another symptom. My autoimmune disease is not a root cause, it's just a label and a symptom to what's going on. So why? Why is my immune system not working well?
I fight the food sensitivity thing all the time. And there are things about food sensitivity testing that I love. You know, we can get some really cool things out of it. But as a, you know, first tier, let's go to food sensitivity testing, I'm like, let's not. Because what is so important to understand is, so often, if not 95% of the time, we have these food sensitivities. It's not the food, it's our immune system, right? There's something that's pissing it off. Yeah, something's pissing it off. And so we may be able to manage a bit by eliminating some of these foods, but we're eliminating foods that are beneficial. So we still got to keep digging.
Yes, totally. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, when I started researching what don't I know, I was led and drawn to nervous system. And it made sense that it's the system that controls every other system in the body. And what's amazing is, you know, in starting to really reevaluate anatomy and physiology and textbooks, you and I both studied together. You know, it talks about how the nervous system is monitoring everything and how it only creates a symptom if it detects an imbalance, which tells me that that's an intentional, by design process that I just don't understand how to understand what my body's saying, but that there's intentionality behind it. And so, you know, knowing that our digestive system replaces itself every 30 days, that was like the timeout. Why are we doing all of these leaky gut protocols? Why are we finding that there's digestive problems in almost everyone? And most of the immune system is in the digestive system. Mm-hmm. So it didn't make sense to me why I was having to manage these things. It's like, if my cells are turning over that fast, I'm replacing 75% of my body in 6 months. Mm-hmm. Why am I not replacing it with healthy cells? And it really came back to a dysregulated nervous system, a nervous system that's in survival mode, that's in fight or flight, freeze or fawn, trauma, triggers, stress, you know, these big words, you know, that my body's compromised down to every single cell, down to the genes in the cell. Study of epigenetics means our genes aren't fixed. And so if I can get my nervous system into the state of being in the parasympathetic, the resting, the digesting, the regenerative hormones, the stem cells, the growth hormones, all of those healthy, you know, signaling molecules, if I can get my body to stay in that state, it will actually be healing and repairing itself 24/7. Mm-hmm. And all my cells will be set to optimal function, not survival mode. And so for me, it was like a 3-month journey, and I could eat those foods. And I've never looked back. I never reacted again, which shocked me because of all my training, right? It takes 4 to 6 months to eliminate antibodies. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not possible before then. But all my lab tests are normal, no sign of an autoimmune disease, no sign of my genetic disorder that's shown up since I was a baby in every test. And my symptoms are gone. And I don't have to do the restricted diets. I don't have to take a billion supplements. I'm not in the chiropractic office every week. it's just a whole new lease on life. And so my nervous system really was the last thing that I ended up focusing on that was my key to full health.
It is amazing. Well, and I think it's the last thing many of us think about, right? I mean, so you have probably how you started out and how I am is, you're the science nerd, and I love the labs, and I love the data, and I love digging in and understanding, putting pieces of the puzzle together. I didn't go and learn how to tap, for example, right? I know it goes deeper than that, but
yes.
The tapping and the mental and the emotional, and so many things that we weren't given those tools, didn't really even think about it. We know the gut and the brain's connected. That's taught to us all the time. You have to have, if your gut's on fire, your brain's on fire, right? I mean, and it's factual, but in every case I have to date now, it's what is your history with trauma? I mean, it's almost one of the first questions I ask now. What's your history with trauma? Have you had any major accidents? These things that sit with us, and like you said, it sits in our tissues. It can come down from generations, right? And what's amazing too, what I love about epigenetics is, what are we passing on to the generations ahead? So the fact that you are putting yourself and I don't know if you're still having babies, I know you have babies, but you have put yourself into a position where likely have kind of erased some of these negative epigenetic components that could be passed on to our kids, our grandkids, our great-great-grandkids, right? Because that's where a lot of it comes from. I mean, there's a lot of people who have a lot of trauma in our past generations, because there's a lot of crazy things happen, just like crazy things are happening today, which can be traumatic.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's so cool because my mom always told me, I really love her, and she's a great inspiration to me. She always said, like, I'm doing my best to do that. I'm doing my best to do better than the generation before. And I hope that if anything, you will just take that on. That it's like we don't all have to be perfect, but if you can just be better than the generation before, we're setting ourselves up, and that's a beautiful ripple effect. Yeah. And I was talking to her this week, and it was so precious because, she's like, well, you're learning things now that I'm just learning now too. Like, you're getting it earlier in life, and that's beautiful. But she shared something that she realized that she's like, man, I just would have done this part differently in my life. And I could feel in my entire body and my nervous system a shift just hearing her say, this is what I would have done different. It's like it brought truth and awareness and relief and clarity to those parts of my upbringing that even as she's healing to this day, it's like still creating those ripple effect changes in me and in my daughter and hopefully in generations to come. So I love that you brought that up.
Well, it's for me, in my perspective of epigenetics, we can give the scientific definition. Our epigenome regulates our genome. Like you said, our genes aren't who we are. It's our epigenome that regulates that, which is lifestyle. It's diet, stress, exercise, sleep. It's the toxicants in the environment. It's all of these things that we have an amazing amount of control over. And for me, what that means is this is like the epitome of free will. God gave us free will, and that's what epigenetics is. It's free will. We make choices in large part about a lot of these things. And I love that. It can be really hard for a lot of people, I think, to take on, including me, right? It creates accountability. It creates, you make the choices, right or wrong or indifferent. Sometimes we don't know what's right or wrong. But it is up to me, and I would much rather it be up to me than up to somebody else who doesn't know me, which is a lot of what we're dealing with today. But it's up to me, and I think it's beautiful. I think it's fascinating, and so anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, except I get excited about it. Uh-oh, I lost your, hold on, lost your audio. Hey, Henry, is it me?
No, it's her. Should be right back.
Are we back?
Oh, there we go. Okay, back.
Okay, great.
Okay.
I was just saying I love what you're sharing, and I think in our school, which was a little bit more holistic, It's cool that we were introduced to people like Bruce Lipton that has studied, you know, how our beliefs and our perceptions are communicated through our nervous system to every single cell. And, you know, he observed cells in petri dishes that were in survival mode, you know, placed in a dish with poison. How did it respond? Could it even receive food that it was given? No, it starved itself to death, versus cells that were in, you know, love mode or creation mode or safety, right? That were in health mode, receiving nourishment and regenerating. And even though it was placed in a petri dish with poison, it was still able to survive. It was able to detox. It was able to put strong barriers up against, you know, the poison. It was able to eat and receive the nourishment to maintain its strength. And it's just amazing, like at the cellular level, this is happening. It's happening on a system level, on an organ level, on a psyche level. So I love it. And yes, I would way rather be the one in control in the driver's seat of my life than be a victim and helpless and powerless to my illnesses, which is the narrative of society. I was told, even in holistic medicine, even in our training in functional medicine, that autoimmune disease is forever, and the best you can do is manage it. Allergies are forever, the best you can do or manage it, or even if we get them to go away, they'll be on again, off again foods, because eventually it'll trigger all the antibodies again, and you'll have to cut that food out for another 6 months, and then try again after you heal your gut and after you do NAET and all these other like woo-woo things to calm down your immune system, you know, blah, blah, blah. And you take turmeric and quercetin and whatever, nettle leaf, you know, it's like you do all these things to make your immune system behave. And it's just so beautiful that it's become so much more simple of how am I treating myself in this moment, and where am I at in my nervous system, and what simple choices can I make to support myself in being at peace and to make a healthy choice in this situation.
So let's dig into the meat of nervous system and what, or nervous system regulation, and what you're doing, how you do it. You know, because I mean, to date, I mean, you're not practicing really functional medicine, functional nutrition at all, are you? It's all nervous system.
Very rare, no. And in the nervous system work, we don't really have to bring that in, although we still can if somebody needs, but usually if they're doing the nervous system work, it is solely that, which is also mind-blowing to me from my background. So I'm like, this shouldn't be working, and it is.
Cool. So I don't know what question to ask yet. I want you just to kind of start and go from there.
Yep. Well, I love one thing you said. It really stood out to me that a few minutes ago you said something like, sometimes we don't even know what choices we're making. And I really think that that is a good starting point for what we want to look at. And, you know, I tell people, look, we are in control of our nervous system. We are either consciously in control and we know what we're doing to be dysregulated, or we're just unconsciously in control. We don't even know what we don't know. We don't know what we're doing to stay dysregulated and what things are triggering it. It's a complete unknown. And so really it's that same nerdy part of me that says, well, we got to dig in and figure that out for each individual. What are those unconscious hidden triggers that are keeping someone dysregulated? And a huge focus that we talk about is we're really learning to become aware of all the places we make unhealthy, unsupportive choices. And usually we know the big stuff. I know to pay my mortgage. I know to, like, you know, do the big stuff, but that's a handful of things. But there's hundreds of choices that we make every day that we're just on autopilot. We're just powering through. We're just going through the motions. We're just doing everything we think we should. We're people pleasing. We're bringing in all of those shadow aspects, those patterns and habits that we've learned of how to survive and how to be socially acceptable and how to keep, you know, be a perfectionist. And I mean, on and on it goes. And so really the key of nervous system regulation is becoming aware of the patterns and habits we operate in that are from survival mode. So it's more like learning the nature of survival mode and learning the nature of creation mode or love mode or peace mode, however you want to look at it. Being in a regulated state where you're fully present, you are in a whole brain state, you're in a state of coherence. These are all concepts maybe some of us have learned. And so from that dysregulated place, we see and perceive life very differently. And our brain also allows us to think of so many more creative ideas or solutions or responses than when we're just in that reflex survival mode. And when we're coming from fear, which happens in a survival state, it's like we're using instincts, but those instincts aren't really aligned on our values and on a big picture. It's very much like tunnel vision, which is an actual, we literally get tunnel vision in fight or flight, metaphorically as well as physically. And so but how do we build that awareness, I think is your main question. Is like, how do you go about this? And so there are some ways where we can tap into seeing what is going on with the nervous system and where do we need to do work. And so one of them that I think most people, it shocks them. Some people are already aware of this in their own story, but I will share. So we know that, like we were talking about, your bucket fills up and it overflows. We literally use that example to say every change that we experience in life, a major life change, not a tiny change, a major life change where life is different, right? So these are milestones: birth, kindergarten, first grade teacher, moving houses, new sibling comes, sibling moves out, divorce happens, I get a promotion at a job, so my day-to-day tasks look totally different. I marry my perfect partner, but still these are changes. And even psychologists say just moving from one house to the next takes 60 days to psychologically process that.
Interesting.
So we are adapting in our nervous system constantly based on change. We're either adapting in healthy ways, hopefully if that's been modeled to us, but for many of us it was not, coming from generations in the past.
Right.
So we're adapting, healthy or unhealthy, we're still adapting, but we usually can hold our selves together. Well, at some point we've adapted. It's like pouring water into a bucket, adapting to the rising water levels. At some point, there's a tipping point. There's an overflow point, and we can no longer cope and adapt. And there's a scientific term called allostatic overload. It just means that the nervous system goes on overload, and we are now stuck in sympathetic dominance. We are stuck in a dysregulated state. So within 3 to 6 months from that overload point is when a new chronic illness or a new disease or a new ongoing symptom that is chronic begins. And so I was never taught this. In all my years, I was like, is it the heavy metals? Is it food allergies? Like, is it, it's childhood trauma? Well, I did not turn on my autoimmune disease in childhood. It turned on much later. So all the healing work I did and the tapping work and all of the stuff I did on childhood trauma did not resolve my autoimmune disease. So as soon as I learned this timeline of how the nervous system works, I had one major life change in my life, and it wasn't traumatic. So I never thought anything of it, but it was a life change. I was in a musical in another town, so I had a whole community. I was with these people. I built very deep relationships with them for months on end, and then the musical ended. And so I didn't see them anymore. I didn't do that in my life. I was back in my hometown. And it was within 3 months I was bedridden from a full-blown autoimmune disease.
Wow.
That was just the straw that broke the camel's back, but it was my tipping point. My bucket, my cup was full, and it had overflowed. And so doing deeper work, it's like, why would that overwhelm my nervous system? I was able to really dive into some more unconscious, what were the perceptions at the time that were perceived as stressful? Because if it wasn't perceived as stressful, it wouldn't have added liquid in my jar, And so I really started looking at how I attached such a sense of belonging in that community, in that part of my life. I loved it. I felt like I was just free to be myself. I felt like they were like-minded with their value systems, that we all shared. Biblical value systems. And so at that time of my life, I'm like, I'm not like the weird one. Like, I found my community, I found where I fit, And so when that ended, I had no idea that what my body did was say, I'm losing my sense of belonging. And so it really does go very deep into our unconscious way that we're viewing life, but our body is only going to respond consistent to how we're viewing life. But once we know that, and we know how to interpret every signal the body says, that If I'm attacking my blood vessels, it's a sense of worth and belonging. Whereas if I have, the digestive issues, a lot of it is I can't digest what's happening in life. This is not okay with me. I don't know how to process this. Whereas if it's issues with the ovaries like PCOS, oftentimes in the brain, the parts of the brain that show lesions are the parts related to losses, like grieving, losses, these kinds of things. And so it's very interesting how, based on brain studies and brain scans and CT scans, we can actually see from the brain real lesions on the brain that correspond to the parts of body that get sick. And we know what kinds of stressors the brain is trying to resolve through all of that. So it's like these aren't separate systems, they're all one system. And when we experience something that's stressful, it actually affects our psyche, like our brain, our organ, all at the same time. The lesion shows up on the brain at the same time that the cellular changes take place in the body. So I think a huge part is we have to stop separating mental health from physical. It's all the same. As you were talking, gut and brain are connected. So we're looking at people with bipolar, but if they're ignoring their digestive systems and their physical well-being, like, they can't heal.
Right.
So I think just it's the education of knowing how all this was working that all of a sudden there was clarity, and then the path to healing that became clear. So part of me regulating my nervous system was working on belonging to myself. I love Brene Brown. She talks a lot in her books, I can people please everyone else, but if I don't belong to myself, then what do I have at the end of the day? Like, I've got to belong to me. I've got to be right with me. I've got to be confident within myself. I've got to be true to myself at the end of the day. And so it was very much going into these interpersonal or deeper, what is my relationship to myself? How do I treat myself every day? Am I treating myself like slave labor? Which is like, perform, go, do this, do that.
Right.
You're not doing good enough. You could have done better. I'm constantly criticizing you.
Yeah.
Like that, those are all signals going to my nervous system every single day, hundreds of signals. What signals am I sending? And when we slow down, take some breaths throughout the day, check in, begin to feel our feelings, begin to ask ourselves the tough questions, we start that self-awareness journey to be able to catch, no, I'm really bothered about what just happened yesterday, and it's actually running in the background. But if I can stop and meet myself in that moment and have that conversation with myself and parent myself and talk it out, feel it, cry it, whatever, throw a fit about it, and then ask myself, how can I support myself now? That's where I gain the power back, and I can start making healthy choices that really honor me and honor my values and honor my feelings as a human. So
I think it's important, and this is such a small part of what you just said, but I think it's a thing that we all do, and often it's unconscious, is the negative self-talk and the negative beat up, and I'm stupid and I did this wrong. I experienced this so much with my sweet mom, who just always did that, and I would always tell her, you have to stop this. I do it too. I don't do it the way I used to. I was aware of what she did, made me aware of myself, so it's everything is a practice. But I mean, until the day she passed, well, sort of. This is what she did, and it just broke my heart that she was the sweetest person, the most God-fearing, amazing woman who brought people to Christ. She just did all of these really great things, but she was never good enough, and it broke my heart. And I just kept thinking, well, how is it that you can have this reel of negativity that just continues on and on? I can only assume it was, something that went on in the family and in her past and probably in generations before her. But, she lacked the awareness. She just did it. And I would tell her about it, and she's just like, whatever, but I think we know now how damaging it is, which is why I try to mitigate that for myself and then for my clients and anybody who I come in contact with, that if this is a thing, then it's a symptom, right? Essentially, it's a symptom. So we need to do something about that, because it will perpetuate and it can get ugly.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time it is unconscious. I think everyone has this because we all do have that survival part of the mind.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it comes from, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, when we really pause and we can look at, we think, oh, it doesn't matter, I'll, brush my teeth tomorrow, or it doesn't matter, nobody's here, I won't stop at the stop sign, or it doesn't matter, I won't wash my water bottle out, it's just my germs and it's just water, no problem. These are all little things that I was habitually doing that I did not realize were reinforcing signals that I wasn't important, I don't matter, I'm not trustworthy, I won't take care of myself, I'm not supported, I'm not a priority in my life. I don't know if I already said that, but these are the themes, right?
Yeah.
And that those are the unconscious messages. And I think especially for believers, it's like you said, oh, she brought so many people to Christ. Okay, but is that Christ's dialogue? Is that what Christ would say about you right now? Or are we listening to a different voice?
Mm-hmm.
And so whether you're a believer or not, it all works the same way within you, but it's just so good to think about, would I tell my daughter the kinds of things I say about myself? Would I tell my best friend? And so this is a simple tool that we can actually start using to self-reflect and look in the mirror. If I did this to someone else, what would I think about that? And then usually it's like, oh my God, that would be so abusive. That would be so toxic and horrible. I would never say that to anybody else, but we say it to ourselves. So learning to parent ourselves is from a loving, supportive, nurturing place of responsibility. And I do think it's like, okay, so many people are working on their inner child right now. Okay, great, let's use that analogy. Then how would you treat yourself if you were your own inner child, or if you were a child? And when I start to do that with myself, nope, let's clean off the dishes. Nope, we can wash them right now and just put them in the rack. Nope, let's make our bed. You feel so good about yourself. So really, and I share this a lot, and when my daughter was 5, she kind of picks up on things. And I asked her one time, so Rainey, I'm curious, how do you be a healthy person? And what she said was so brilliant, and I was like, oh my God, that's literally everything I teach, boiled down into just the most simplest phrase. At 5 years old, she said, Mom, you do the right thing, so you're proud of yourself. And wherever I am doing what I know within me is right within me, doing my best, but not to get someone else's approval, or not because I think I should, or not because I'm an idiot and why can't I get this right? When I'm doing it to feel good within me, that I am right with me first, that builds resilience and peace, and it resolves stress within the nervous system. And I love to say, we can try to lie to ourselves, and we all do, but we can't lie to our nervous system. It knows everywhere you've not stopped at the stop sign. It knows all the pieces of mail that are piled up in the corner. It knows, that you haven't sat down just to do your budget. It knows that you overspent at whatever and hoped no one would notice it. Your nervous system's tracking everything. So going back to Anatomy and Physiology 101, the nervous system is monitoring all things. And if there's homeostasis, balance perceived, the nervous system is fine, there's no symptoms. But when the nervous system notices an imbalance, or what I call now an inner conflict, which is stress, it works to create a symptom to let us know. So our bodies start talking, and when we ignore and don't understand what's being said, and we ignore these other things that are bothering us, the body just talks louder, and it will until we address that root. As soon as we do, though, I've experienced in my own journey, if a symptom's popping up, I can find the exact trigger. I can make those healthy choices based on my intuition and my discernment that I do have. We all have it, listening to my gut instincts. And when I make those decisions from there, or even just say that I will, commit that I will, my symptoms go away. So I used to be a chronic migraine sufferer. I can get it to go away within 1 to 2 minutes. I mean, that is amazing empowerment.
So when's the last time you had a migraine?
Oh, I can't remember.
No? Yeah? That's amazing.
I had a brain injury actually a couple years ago, and I did experience migraines after that. But as far as the chronic issue, I can't even remember. So
so good. I was going to say something and I can't remember what it was, because when you said that, I think, thinking about the migraines, you know, so it's such a prevalent issue, migraines, and so debilitating. I talked with someone the other day, she's getting daily migraines. You can't function, and I think that I'm sensitive to these because I had a headache for 2 years, right? This is part of my story, is having a headache for 2 years, where I tried to function, I tried to work, and you know, your personality changes because it's just everything is just hurts. You can't see, you can't hear, right? Anyway, it's just it's horrible, and it just breaks my heart when I hear of people who struggle like that. And what is it, you know, even for myself, I think what was it, you know, talking with you, what could it have been that triggered that, besides the, you know, biomechanics of my own body, right? You know, there are things that I know are super wonky biomechanically, but what is it that triggered that point? And then, you know, you get past it, thankfully, but that, anyway, I'm sort of rambling, but there's just so much that we can do that we don't realize. And I think that leads me to what I was going to say, is one of the things that I tell people a lot is your body is always talking to you. And so we have to learn to listen, because we've forgotten how to listen. You know, generations ago, they knew how to listen, and they knew what it meant, and they would go do what they needed to do to manage and eliminate whatever it was. But these days, we have an issue, we have too much to do, we got to go take a pill. We have too much to do, we got to ignore it. We got too much to do. And this is when, you know, we talk about, you know, the spiral, things just get out of control because we don't listen, we ignore. I fully believe, which is so interesting too, you said this a few minutes ago, we talk about dysfunction, and what I try to do today is kind of get away from that word, because I believe that the body is so beautifully and innately and God made, and so perfect and so miraculous in so many ways, that its ultimate goal is to keep us alive. That's what it's trying to do. So when we're getting symptoms, it's exactly what you said. It's the body saying, I need you to jump in now. It's time for, you know, and it's going to knock, and then it's going to start banging really, really loud, and it's going to make you really uncomfortable. But, you know, there's, just as you say, kind of taking it to a different level, is then it goes into that survival mode, and the brain goes into survival mode, and we have to know, we have to be able to discern, is it the brain in survival mode, and is it real? Does that make sense? Do you know what I mean?
Yes, it's because it's perceived environment. It's like,
yes, thank you.
You know, people understand, okay, if you have PTSD, you can interpret something in a completely different, non-reality way because it's triggering other things.
Right.
And so I love what you're talking about, because every chronic issue in the body is a survival program that's running. And it's like re-educating people to trust their bodies. There is no mistake in how our bodies works. It's not broken. It didn't mess up.
Yeah.
If there's a survival program that's triggered, our body will make cellular changes to help us through the stress. At that point, we usually don't have symptoms quite yet. It's when the body experiences a resolution, trying to adapt and integrate and come out of survival mode, and it's reversing those cellular changes. That's where we usually first start experiencing the symptoms, which are a healing process. Most symptoms are actually the body in a healing process. So when we jump to the I'm too busy, I need the pill, by definition, we interrupt the body's natural healing process and we throw it back into survival mode. And this is one of the ways that we literally perpetuate the illness, because the body never gets to get back to its original normal functioning. It's going from survival mode to trying to heal it, then we interrupt it. It's like, come on, give me a chance here.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So,
well, I think, you know, a real kind of real world example of that is a fever. What we know today is we get sick, we have a fever, well, I feel like crap, I need to go take something so I can break my fever. We do this to our kids, we do this to ourselves. It's not fun to have a fever, but it's the way that the body works, it's the way that the body heals, it's the way the body manages whatever it is that it's trying to fight. And heat fights that. And so we break that, we're allowing whatever it is to actually take hold and create more of an issue.
Yes, this is exactly it. And why can we apply it in one area, but then every other area we're like, oh, it doesn't apply. Just kidding. And I love it. It's like, if I live in the parasympathetic, there are no ongoing symptoms. All symptoms get resolved in that space. So to me, that was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Because I always did feel better after a massage or on vacation or when I did my deep breathing or whatever, things that stimulated the parasympathetic. And I had somebody say, well, then why don't you live there all the time? Like, that's the key, is living there all the time, not just using a tool to stimulate your nervous system for a few minutes. And I was just like, light bulb moment. It changed my whole life. That phrase, you have to learn to live in the parasympathetic, changed my whole life, because it really put into perspective, oh, yeah, if I was there all the time, my body would be able to function optimally, and I wouldn't keep going in these stress cycles and flare-ups. And sure enough, I mean, I'm living proof it was true.
Fascinating. So let's talk about that. How do you get to live in the parasympathetic all the time?
Yes, there's so many different ways. I've tried to describe it over the years. But I like we'll talk about a few, okay? I'll see my best to try to get it to be clear. Number one, we do talk a lot, learning the nature of things. I have to actually recognize what survival mode is and when I'm in it, and what I think and what I feel and what kinds of behaviors I do when I'm in that. I just found a video, it popped up on my newsfeed this week, and it was showing this girl, and she's like cleaning the counter, super, super frazzled, super, super fast. And then you watch her go, slow down. And just in slowing down and being present and not cleaning so frantically, it's triggering a nervous system regulation response. So that's one area we teach the nature of it by really teaching people to feel in their bodies what it feels like to be slowed down. Take some deep breaths, do some cross lateral exercises, just do your 5 senses, right? What do I hear, taste, smell, feel, see, and when we take all that in and get present, there is a feeling of being slowed down. Right? Eckhart Tolle talks about it, the power of now, being in the now moment. Love him. So it's like, this alone will begin to show us everywhere we're sped up. This alone will begin to show us when we're making reactive decisions. Oh, I was sped up in that moment. That's why I forgot the important thing. Versus when we're slowed down, what kind of awarenesses do we get? We can use a whole brain state so we can see solutions. And oftentimes, just when clients will get into a slowed down state, they'll start problem solving on their own. So it's not just do this tool, do this modality, do this technique. We're not teaching you to fish. We're not giving you a fish. We're actually teaching you how to think like a master fisherman, so that you can use all the tools, you can discern what tools you need, and you know how to think about it. You're the master. And so this is an example. Another example is learning like what a self-defeating behavior looks like. Everywhere I think it doesn't matter, I tell myself I don't matter. So that's kind of what I was talking about, the stopping at the stop sign. I really wrestled with that one. Does it matter? I don't want to do it. Nobody's here. I'm on a back road. Does it really matter? And I sat and I prayed. And I actually said, okay, I want to know if this really matters. Because either I need to stop pressuring myself about it, shoulding myself to death. Or I want to stop wrestling and step up and just do the right thing. And so as I started doing some unconscious work around that, I started realizing that why I didn't want to stop at the stop sign was that this is what I was telling myself. I don't care about your experience of life right now. Just get where you're going. Because I'm the only one in the car, right? So that's when it doesn't matter to me, is when it's just me. Well, if I was treating someone else, I don't care about your passenger. I don't care about your decision right now. I'm going to blow through this stop sign. We're just on a back road. I don't care if it makes you anxious or, feel unsafe with me. Nothing matters right now. What matters is when you arrive at your destination, and then it matters because other people's there.
Right.
Other people are there.
Yeah.
So this is like when you zoom in and you know the nature of these sped up survival mode, autopilot things, you gain so much awareness. So how do we do that? Slowing down. We start being honest about our feelings. We start looking at using our gut instincts. Like I would start asking myself, if a business deal went bad, all right, when did I know?
Mm-hmm.
I ignored my intuition somewhere. Where did my intuition speak to me? And in the beginning, it was like, oh, it was just the subtle thought. Oh, I hope this works out. And I ignored it.
Mm-hmm.
But because I went back and I really looked and I paused and I evaluated, this business deal went bad. Where did my intuition tell me that? Oh my gosh, I knew. I knew when I started wondering, I hope this works out.
Mm-hmm.
And I ignored it because I was too sped up to push through it. So when we start seeing everything in our life is a mirror to how we're relating to ourselves, then it's our greatest teacher, and our body's our greatest teacher. If I flare up, that's the first thing I do. When did the symptoms start? What triggered me around that time? Oh, there it is. What feelings did I not want to feel? And I sit and feel them for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And then I start asking myself, all right, what is in the highest good for everyone involved here? What healthy choices can I make? And there's usually 1 to 2 things I can do to help me be at peace. Oh, I need to call my mentor. Oh, I need to, whatever, take myself out for a hike. I just need to feel my feelings. Or, oh, I need to set a boundary. We have that information inside. The Bible even says it's not across the ocean. It's not on the top of the mountain. It's near and dear to you. It's written on the tablets of your heart. When we slow down and we tap into that and we listen, Holy Spirit's always talking. Am I listening?
Mm-hmm.
Our nervous system's always talking. Are we listening? So when we listen and we trust ourselves and that inner voice of wisdom and integrity, it's like we start solving our own problems. So I think it's like that slowing down, connecting, feeling, asking myself, okay, what healthy choice can I make so that I feel I'm at peace with myself? I have to feel good in myself. And the beautiful thing is when you do, there's no inner conflict. Regardless of what's happening outside in my life, relationship, marriage, kids, school, blah, 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 clients, taxes, due, all of this stuff, government, politics, no matter what's happening out there, if I don't have an inner conflict, my nervous system is regulated. And I can approach that outside stressor from a place of peace, from a place of wisdom and clarity. And that's really what this is about, is one little step at a time, just building that awareness.
It's amazing because it sounds so simple. But it's not, right? I mean, it's a practice, it's a learning, it's an education. I tell people on a regular basis we've got to find our team, because I know that having self-awareness can be a really hard thing. And knowing, and sometimes we just can't do it on our own. And I'm quite sure you didn't do it on your own. You had guidance, yes.
I did, because it was in my blind spot, so I can't see what I can't see.
Mm-hmm.
But when I have somebody that is farther ahead than me in the journey, and they can point out, because you have to be beyond it to see it.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as you can see it and point that out and have that mirror to, it's really a 3 to 5 month journey.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if people have been sick for decades, it's a 3 to 5 month process. Their nervous systems regulate and that rapid cellular repair starts happening. So, yes.
Awesome. Well, it's hard to believe, but we are at our time. It's been so good and so good. And I hope that everybody will really take this to heart, and as well as share. This is something that is not shared enough. I talk about, the nerdy science stuff all the time. And of course, I'm like, oh, please share. But, there are things that we really need to take to heart and listen to and know, whether it's for ourselves, whether it's for the people who we love, people who we know, to, those who have been struggling for years and years and years. What is it that's not being done? I told you before we, went live that, I'm seeing people now who have been struggling for so long, and they're so frustrated, and they're so mad, and they're so complicated, and it's that downward spiral, and you can watch it. It's, you're doing their history, and you can just watch it, and it's heartbreaking. And so bringing that awareness, I think is so key. But then they have to want to move forward with it too, right? You have to want to do the work, because it's always going to be work. It's going to be work with, you know, your health. It's going to be work with your daily life. It's work to do your Bible study. It's work to or practice, right? To do all of these things that we need to do. And, you know, calming our nervous system is one of those things. Beyond that, then, you know, we come to a place where we're all sitting today, and just like what you said, is if we're inwardly, if we are calm, then everything else around us may not be, because things are not calm right now. And there are a lot of people who are in an amazing amount of fear and frustration or anger, right? In this place, going back to finding that space of gratitude and calm, because this is not the place that we need to be. We have enough going on. We should all be, you know, I think, you know, maybe this is a little woo-woo, but coming together and putting out the gratitude and being grateful for what we have, and being grateful for each other, even if we don't all agree on these things. What if we all did that and we're like, oh, the world is calm again?
Yes, I know.
Seems so simple.
Yes, that's heaven on earth right there.
I know. One day, right?
Yes. And your body will tell you too. It's not like suppressing your feelings and this toxic positivity, but there is that true lasting inner peace. And your body will let you know if you're suppressing a yucky emotion. Your body will yell at you. It yells at me, and so then I'm like, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I got it, and I am responding in a healthy way now.
Well, and that's great though. You get a symptom and you say thank you. I mean, that's a really freaking big deal, and amazing the way that you put it, because you're thanking your body for telling you what it needs, because that's what it's doing.
Yes. And now, I mean, it doesn't have to talk to me. I maybe flare up twice a year.
Yeah.
So that's just a beautiful thing. It's a great relationship. I'm listening before it has to yell. So thank you so much for this. Yeah. I appreciate this opportunity to share, and I'm sending everyone love. Absolutely.
Thank you. So everybody needs to know where to find you.
Okay, you can find us online, chronicillnesssolution.com. And there's also a place to schedule a free consult, get some education, deep dive on the nervous system, and experience some nervous system regulation with us for free. So I'm always happy to offer that to our listeners as well. It's probably the best place. We also have a Facebook community called Wholehearted Healing, the Chronic Illness Solution. So you can join our Facebook group as well.
Very good. Check her out. She's doing great work. This is a really, really important piece to getting healthy and to staying well. So we all have these really big things we want to do in life. We got to be able to do them. This is one of those ways, if not the most important way. So anyway, thanks everybody for being here. Thank you, Michal, for being here. So grateful for you and all the hard work that you're doing. You can find me at tastelifenutrition.com. You can also find me at immunowellnesscenter.com. And then what else? You can go to the website. You can fill out a free assessment. We can chat about what's going on. We can chat about your nervous system and see how we might be able to help you. And then it's Taste Life Nutrition all over the social media. You'll find us here streaming live on KUHSdenver.com every Thursday, 10 a.m. Mountain Time. And we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Michal.